All right, we're live with Product Tank Brisbane. Welcome everyone. As you tune in, you're in the right place. You made it. We're just going to be hanging out here, having a bit of a chat for the next 5 or 10 minutes while everyone hops on. So make sure you can use the comment feature in YouTube. We can see all the comments, and sometimes we put them up on screen. But yeah. So kicking things off, before we jump into the product stuff, question that I might put out there, what old person thing do you do? What old person thing do you do at the minute? Fuddy-duddy type stuff.
Why don't you kick us off with your answer, James?
Okay, well, I feel like an old person thing that I do, I don't know, like fastidious type things, maybe? This is a tough question. I was thinking that you guys would weigh in. Let's see if anyone's got.
So old people things that you do, Jace, hit us up. Come on.
Yeah. I could do another question.
This is the hardest question I've ever been asked at a Product Tank.
All right.
I've
I'm
got
the
an answer.
extrovert. Okay, go for it.
All right. So a few years ago, I took up cross stitching, and my wife cross stitches now as well. She's far outdone me. Some of her cross stitches are sort of this big, but I just do the little pixel people one. So any of your favorite TV characters, I can cross stitch for you.
Nice. I'm going to double up and say I'm a crocheter. I do a bit of cross stitch, but definitely a rug crocheter. Good time of year for it too.
How about puzzles? Is that an old person thing or?
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe depending how many puzzles a week you do. Does that make you old?
What's your highest count puzzle? What have you gotten up to?
Oh, like pieces or like number of puzzles in a week?
It's like thousands.
I know there's a lot. Is it like 5,000? Is that a lot?
Yeah, that's a big.
That's pretty sizable.
Yeah, it did take up like half the kitchen floor. Because the size of the piece as well. Yeah, no, it could not fit on the table. It's bigger than the table.
How about another question? If you could have a reality TV show, what would it be?
Ooh, okay.
Oh.
It'd be like MasterChef, but for podcasts. So they'd have half the episode would be 40 minutes of them panicking about what they were going to do the podcast on, and then the last 10 minutes would be them recording it, and then you critique the podcast.
Yeah.
Nice. I love the guy that says jar sauce. That's my new favourite phrase. bin chickens come off the top and now it's jar sauce. This guy does it on YouTube. It's amazing.
Oh, Nat, that fellow with the long hair and
with the long hair. Jar sauce.
Yep.
I never knew it. Now I know it. Which is like Dolmio.
If I had a reality TV show, it'd be one that follows couples around when they go furniture shopping. So we're currently going through this phase at the moment. We've just built a house. We're looking at furniture, and the number of disagreements my wife and I go through on furniture, I'm sure it leads to some real good popcorn moments for anyone that's spectating.
My reality TV show is tracking down those people that send like spammy type emails or gimmicks, like actually finding them and like talking to them and being like, what's your deal,
Kind of a catfish kind of thing.
Yeah, like kind of reel them in to like engage them and do a different one each episode. Strangest Wi-Fi name you've ever seen?
Oh, okay.
Take some. Have a look.
I do have an answer to this. I was over at Bruce's place the other day, and there's a dog that barks behind his place. He's in Paddington, and there's a few different different houses around, and I was getting on the Wi-Fi, and there's obviously someone being very passive aggressive about that, and it says barking dogs suck.
Indeed.
Nice.
We got Martin. Martin saying hello. I might pop this one up on screen. He's our fearless leader from London. Good to have you with us, Martin. We're just having playful banter here. Another question for anyone on screen or comment from YouTube is if you could design a custom hotel, a themed hotel, what would it be? What would the theme be like?
Hands down, Lego.
Oh,
Like a
yes.
Lego
And they've done that one now, so we can go there.
Oh, have you seen the guy that has like the basement with all the drawers of Lego?
I do. I'm a bit of a
Yeah.
Lego fan, Nick, so we'll banter about that throughout the session, I'm sure.
So I color coded my Lego into drawers as a kid. So
You're a
that's
very
where I'm
serious
at.
kid.
Next level. I love it.
One of our PMs at Outfit has his name's Tom Doyle, so you can hit him up about this later as well. But when we interview now, he asks how people attack a Lego set. So what's your strategy? It's a bit of a litmus test in terms of the question. So yeah, he loves to psychoanalyze people based on that.
Is this one of these? There's two types of people in the world. You know, people that start with the instructions and work methodically, step by step, and loose gooses that just kind of see what fits together.
Yeah, and I'm still yet to know which is, the better answer. So.
All right. So last question. Would you rather have a live-in massage therapist or a live-in chef?
Sure.
Massage, 100%.
Chef for sure.
Yeah, chef.
Yeah, I'm team chef for healthy stuff. For healthy
Wow.
stuff.
Yeah.
COVID, so
I'm the
the whole
outlier
lockdown
here.
thing, lockdown would have been cooler with the chef.
Yes.
Agree.
Indeed. Darius likes his massages though. So.
Only because I enjoy cooking, so I'd hold on to
Mhm.
cooking and get somebody to give me the massage as well. Do that.
Oh, fair enough.
All right.
Call out to Bennett there. Is contributing vinyl record, it seems to be his band.
Put
I don't
a
think
few
that's
ideas up here. We got a escape hotel. Yep, that sounds a little scary. You've got a blindfold and you can find your way out. That sounds fun. We've got, let's see, Martin gave us, mine is 2 fly for Wi-Fi. That's when we're talking about the Wi-Fi one. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
I've seen one before. It was called, I think it was like It Hurts When I Pee, as in IP address. So It Hurts When I Pee. Oh, that was great. I had a good chuckle at that one.
Okay, so maybe should we get into the formal part, our announcements?
Yes.
And
So,
do the,
all right.
do-
Well, some of us are going to disappear quite seamlessly.
go. And now it's just me and some slides are coming up here. So it's fantastic to have everyone here tonight. Thanks for joining in. Or tuning in with your morning. Again, make sure that you can up on the comments and make use of those. This is going to be a very fun, interactive session. How they operate a bit more, and also we're going to have our panel on our topic tonight with imposter syndrome. We're really excited about this year, how we've been able to continue to do our product roadshow, and basically, we've been going around to different companies in Brisbane to highlight sort of how they do product, and we're going to keep keep doing that. Next month we are going to be with CanStar, and that is on June 20. I think I've got the slide there somewhere. 28th. Yes, June 28th. So with CanStar next week, and we're still working with them on some very exciting content. that we're going to be unpacking there as well. So just a heads up to save that date. And Lou, if you want to go back a couple, we have some exciting new offers from Mind the Product, which is basically the organization that founded Product Tank there in London some years ago. And we have membership now, which is fantastic. The best part about that is access to product leaders in Ask Me Anything sessions, which are live. And it also gives you access to all of the conference content. We've got the San Francisco Mind the Product Conference, which is coming very soon here in July. Just by getting membership access, you'll also have be able to hop on and watch all the sessions as soon as they're sort of hot off the press there. So check it out. It's really, really good value. I've been enjoying from kind of being a part of that as well. And also just hop on Mind the Product. There's a great newsletter to be a part of. Join Slack. There's like over 50,000 product people on Slack, and it's just an amazing resource to be able to hop in there at any time and smash out a question, which is, could be as tough as you want it. There's generally always going to be someone on there who's can give you some great insight there. So on the screen, we've got the membership levels. So check that out as well. So we're going to go ahead and get Outfit, Ash from Outfit up on the stage, as well as Anthony, and we're going to kind of take a look at how they do product. There we go, transitioning all over. Hey, Ant, how you going?
Good.
All right. I'll step back, leave it to you guys. Thanks very much.
Hey everybody. So thanks for hosting virtually, of course, Outfit and Ash.
No worries.
For anyone that doesn't know, Outfit's a great little success story in Brisbane. They started up in around 2016 out of a project from Red Hat. They were building a marketing material management platform bespoke for Red Hat. And then they realized that this was something that they could be doing for everybody. And it grew out of that. And in 2017, they got their first round of funding, which apparently they didn't need. And just recently, they've taken on their second round of funding. But they've been doing such a great job of bootstrapping that they haven't actually needed this funding to build a product. It's more around being able to take the product to the States, and there's great big expectations that they're going to be able to take on Canva in this space. It's a big challenge.
Thanks, Ant. Thanks.
Well, I'm just reading the press release, reading between the lines here. So Ash joined Outfit in 2016. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And has been a bit of a jack of all trades, starting out in marketing and doing a lot of pre-sales, getting your hands dirty, finding the first customers. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your background from your point of view, Ash.
So, when I came out of school, I decided I would study graphic design. My dad said to me, you better pick a career that, helps you actually make money. I initially wanted to work, or I guess not work, but, sort of concentrate on fine art. But I thought I should probably, focus on something that would be a little bit commercially viable as well. So, I studied graphic design, and very quickly realized that designers work really closely with marketing teams. So I moved into the marketing space as well. And yeah, before Outfit, I was really just working for agencies. I worked in a lot of franchise organizations as well, and really feeling the pain that our users at Outfit, or our new users at Outfit, generally were feeling before they implemented Outfit. So yeah, that was my career in the lead up to Outfit, and I really didn't ever think I'd be in a technology company, to be honest.
So winding back 4 years, 2016, you've just joined. How many other people are in the company at that point?
Oh, we were very small. We definitely fit on one desk. I think there was about 3 or 4 of us at the time, including Bruce himself. So yeah, it was a a tiny little startup, and to be honest, I really chased Bruce down and said to him, you know, you absolutely need to hire me for this role. I know exactly the pain of your users, and I think I can make a really big difference.
Yeah, brilliant. So you join on day one, and next thing you know, what are you doing?
So almost day one. It was almost day one. It's probably really day two. Initially, so I was hired as a brand and marketing consultant back then. But Bruce sort of said to me, well, if you want to consult on brand and marketing, you better go find us some clients. So my initial first few months were really just selling and getting in the right room with the right people. And that really gave me an understanding of some of the objections we needed to overcome as a product. It was really about selling our team and our vision rather than the product, because, you know, to be honest, back then we didn't quite have a huge product. We were still developing it with Red Hat. So yeah, initially very much just in a selling capacity.
And who was some of your first clients?
So obviously Red Hat was our sort of foundation client, and then we just sort of through happenstance, I guess, we found the uni or the higher education sector. We signed, back then we had QUT, we were working directly with one of their faculties. We had Monash Uni, followed by Deakin. I signed Sydney Uni as well. So yeah, very much concentrating on university as well as franchise. So back then we had 12 round as a franchise as well, and university and franchise is still today, you know, two of our really, really big sort of verticals that we focus on.
So what was the lead-in? Why unis? What was the kickoff there?
It was really it was a lead, as it always is. You know, we had a good lead into one of the faculties at QUT, but we very quickly realized that the DNA we were looking for in a client was that centralized team, and then that kind of like a hub and spoke model, essentially. So when you look at someone like a global organization like Red Hat, and then you look at someone like Monash, they have very similar problems where they've got a centralized marketing and design team, and they're really trying to empower their field teams, but it's quite costly and difficult to do that for a number of reasons. So universities absolutely fit that model, as did franchise. And then you look at, you know, many global organizations that you know, we sort of deal with today as well. They have that kind of hub and spoke model.
Yeah, right. Okay. So fast forward to today, and how many people have you got on staff?
I think we're at I brought another person on this week in my team, so my team's 9, and I think in total we've got about 56 in our team. Yeah, in outfit in total.
And what's your composition like? Like what kind of roles are people playing?
Across the whole business or just in product?
Across the whole business, I guess. Like.
Yeah, so we've got quite a established customer success team, and we kind of we established that pretty early, because once you move through the sale, you've then kind of got to hand it off to someone to start to, you know, pick up I guess what you've sold in. So back then, when I transitioned from sales to CS, I was sort of handing off to myself, I guess. But yeah, we established CS quite quickly. So we've got quite a decent team there. There's sort of probably about 10 or 12 in that team. Quite a large sales team as well, and that's global now. So we have presence in the UK as well as the US, and obviously here in Brisbane and Sydney, sort of scattered around. Quite a large development team. We've always been very passionate about keeping development here. We have some sort of freelancers as well. So quite a lot of developers. We have DevOps that we've just started to build out as well. As you grow and as you get large enterprise clients, that becomes a really big focus. Couple of sort of ops roles as well, and then obviously the product team.
Right, and the product team's how many people?
So there's 9 in the product team. So we've got 3 UX designers, we've got 3 PMs, myself obviously heading up. We have a product marketing manager that I was really, really passionate about getting that role in. And we've now just brought in a front-end developer as well that will sort of sit more specifically with the product team as well.
That's great that you've got the marketer in the product team. Like, everybody sort of aspires to do that, but I haven't seen it happen a lot.
Yeah, so Caitlin, she's been fantastic, and she's been a really crucial link. We've obviously got marketing as well, and Caitlin's been a really big kind of bridge between marketing as well as CS, and she works really closely with our QAs as well. So there's a lot of sort of conversations that she facilitates in a day that I think sometimes can be missed by PMs and product teams in general. So yeah, it's been it's a bit of an odd role, but I read a lot about it and really wanted to see how we could run with it, and it's proven to be really valuable.
Oh yeah, great. It reminds me of a line from Ben Horowitz's Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager. He says, a good product manager thinks about the press release before even scheduling the feature. Yeah, absolutely. So as you evolved, like we talked about before, that in the early days, it was really just what can the customer pay for was the main feature prioritization process. And now, as you've become a much bigger product team and there's very high expectations, the process has sort of progressed from that. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting one, and a lot of the time the analogy that I kind of use is it's a bit odd, but sort of walking through the jungle. And I think about it that initially when you start to walk through and you're trying to pick your path through the trees, you can generally see what's ahead of you, and I guess a misstep isn't sort of too detrimental to your path or your roadmap. But as you start to, I guess, build momentum, you grow in terms of clients and features, and you know, the complexity of what you're building grows. You really have to start to think about what you're doing, and you've got to start to put a strategy in front of you. So I think in those early days, you know, early adopters of the platform know that, one, they're investing a lot in the team and, you know, the minds behind the product. But they're also, there's a highly collaborative, you know, sort of process that goes on. And that's great. You can kind of build what the client wants to their specs, and it's probably going to land quite well with some of the other clients as well, because it's a pretty obvious feature. But as you start to, you know, like I said, you're getting more clients, the stakes are a little bit higher. You need to start to think about the strategy and think about, you know, where you truly want the product to go and what the real vision is. So you need to be a little bit more deliberate about those next steps.
So obviously you've got a team of 9 and you're leveraging everybody's love for the product, engagement in building this product. Do you end up having to make captain's call very often, or do you set the boundaries and hope that the right decisions emerge?
That's a really, really good question, and I'm absolutely not that type of leader. I think that's partly why I've chosen the imposter syndrome sort of topic, because it is hard to make a captain's call. I think if I do have to make those calls, it's generally from past experience, or you know, it's knowing truly what the client wants, or having heard that almost firsthand from, you know, a lot of my experience before. But I really kind of welcome collaboration. And I think if your goal is clear, a lot of the time you'll find consensus in the group. It's when you're not quite clear on what the purpose of, you know, the conversation is, or the feature, or the debate. That's sort of when you get really, really mixed opinions. So yeah, not often do I have to make those calls. I try and get the right people in the room, and hopefully the right call comes a little bit easier. So
stepping back, or not stepping back, maybe it's stepping forward, getting into the minutia. How do you visualize roadmaps? Like, what kind of tools are you using to, do the producty stuff, prioritization, roadmaps, etc., etc.?
Yeah. So we've had all sorts of renditions of the roadmap over the years. Initially, before we had a product team established, and we've only had our team established for about a year and a half, which is sometimes surprises people. But like we were talking about before, a lot of the time your feature development and the next steps are quite obvious. So we were quite fortunate in that regard. But we've run spreadsheets. We've run sprint planning sessions where we've had the whole business involved. Like we've kind of done, the full gamut. But at the moment, we run a product called Product Board. I implemented that about 6 months ago now. 6 to 8 months ago, and it's brilliant. So there's a few different layers that you can use. It's got a portal which allows clients to sort of provide feedback as well. We can visualize the roadmap internally. So we share that between sort of product tech and the rest of the business. And the other thing I'm loving is the way that you can kind of create good hierarchy around your actual product and your features as well. So yeah, I looked at a few other platforms, but to be honest, with Product Board, it looks quite nice as well. And I think when you're dealing with a product team, you want to make sure that they're using good products. So yeah, we're using Product Board. We obviously use Jira as well in terms of our backlog planning and our sprints. And Product Board works in well with Jira as well. So yeah, they're sort of our main tools in terms of a roadmap that we use daily.
Yeah, awesome. And that goes right through to your senior leadership. They're looking at that as well.
Yeah, it's been interesting, sort of going on that journey, and you can live and die by your product roadmap, and it's quite a fine line with how up to date you keep it. But yeah, they can log in there, and it's absolutely up to date. With everything, and having one source of truth was really important for me. And when you're a startup, I think you find there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of different spreadsheets, and you kind of every time you jump into a meeting, especially when you're small, you can sort of fall victim to starting all over again. So having a really firm source of truth was important to me when we were starting to scale, not only as a product team but as a business in general.
How do you balance the people often get confused between a delivery schedule or a Gantt chart and a roadmap, and everybody's got a different opinion about where they fall on this. For me, like 3 years out, it's very blurry and nebulous. 6 months is a good time frame to commit to. How does that work for you?
In terms of how we talk about timeframes?
Yeah, and just balancing the expectation that a roadmap is not necessarily a delivery schedule. Like, obviously, things that in the near term you need to be able to make commitments and deliver on those. But as things get further and further out, then you're learning on that journey. So those commitments are less meaningful. Yeah,
it's been such an interesting process and learning curve for me. So we've done all sorts of types of timeframes. We've done now, next, and later. We've done by quarters. We've sort of flipped between looking at objective-driven roadmaps and then really kind of granular feature requests as well. Right now, we're sort of working towards quarters, just because it's giving the business some type of sense of when things will be delivered. And the roadmap is quite ambitious for us at the moment. We're doing some really important work on some large areas of the app. So time boxing for us is important as well. We could kind of, with some of the objectives, we know we could, you could almost fill a whole year with just refining some of the objectives. So we're really being deliberate about time boxing that way. But I'd say as we mature as a product team and we are able to focus more on the minutia of, you know, a particular behavior in the app, we might move to the now, next, and later. But right now, it's really about covering a really deliberate amount of ground in the next 12 months in the platform.
Yeah, great. You said you'd also you'd given ShapeUp a spin at some point. How did that work for you?
Look, we're still implementing ShapeUp, and I was talking with Bruce about this the other day, and sort of talking about, I guess, whether or not anyone really truly implements Agile, you know, to a T. And I don't think you can. I think you're in a little bit of a in a daze if you think that, you know, you can sort of implement Agile to a T. And I think it's just the balance of where we're at as a business. We're no longer a scale up. We're definitely a startup, and we're not a startup. We're a scale up now. Yeah. And we have, you know, the majority of our clients are large enterprise clients as well. So there's always a combination of things going on. I'm finding ShapeUp's working really well because our team's still wanting that collaboration very early on in the piece when we're working on features and we're looking at, you know, the direction that we want to go. So ShapeUp, I think right now will give us a little bit more time on the important features in sort of those early processes, I guess.
Okay, great. So one last question before we move over to question time from the audience. We've already got one there from Patrice. Post-COVID, what do you see happening at Outfit? Is everybody moving back to the office? Is it going to be remote? Is it going to be blended?
So
the whole thing.
I have to say the best thing for us that's come out of COVID, because we've always been a business that has had, you know, people globally, like we've had contractors, you know, all over the place. And I think one thing that it's brought a lot of focus to for us is understanding or empathizing with how those remote workers feel, you know. So by having the whole business remote, all of a sudden you understand what it's like when you don't get the Google Hangout link, or, you know, when you don't quite know where the meeting notes are and all the rest of it. So it's brought a lot of empathy to the majority of the business, which has been great. We're really lucky. We've got a really, I guess, open-minded founder. Like if anyone knows Bruce, you know that he's able to kind of go with the next idea really easily. So for us, we're now looking at our office setup more as a clubhouse, and we're going more remote first. So encouraging people to find the right work-life balance where it suits them. We're currently in the process of fitting out our new office, and we're looking at, you know, all the important bits and pieces that we need for the meeting rooms and things like that. So yeah, it's absolutely changed how we feel about how many people we need in the office at one time. But it's also, I think, really made us appreciate the time that you do have face-to-face and how important that connection is as a team. Yeah. I think where we've seen a little bit of the strain is that we haven't had, you know, your normal sort of water cooler conversations or coffees or lunches, and you kind of, that's when you really need to dig in and deliver a feature, or you need to, you know, work that little bit harder. That empathy is really important, and that connection. So I think that's sort of the good and the bad of COVID. But yeah, we're absolutely going remote first, which is pretty cool. So I can definitely get to the gym a little bit more now, which is nice. And yeah, I think it's about also having trust that your people are doing, you know, what they need to do, and ultimately you kind of see if they're not delivering that, you know, and you can address that, and it shouldn't be something that is sort of punishing the masses. I guess it's just about having those individual conversations and checking in as well. So yeah, COVID, I think, has had a really positive impact on our business.
That's great to hear. So we've got a question here from Patrice. Patrice would love to hear why you wanted to join such a small startup. Just to paraphrase.
It's a good question. To be honest, I have always worked for the majority of businesses I've worked for have been small. So I've worked for a couple of, I would say, medium-sized businesses, but I've never worked for large, corporate companies. So for me, I really I blur the lines between work and home and personal interests. So when I saw Outfit, I knew that instantly I would love the concept, and I knew I had a lot to offer. And yeah, it wasn't a deliberate, hey, I'm going to join a startup at all. It was just, I loved the concept. I loved that it was in Brisbane. I loved that it was sort of around design and branding, and that's sort of as far as I considered the decision. I think if that question was put, if I weren't at Outfit now, but having gone through the Outfit experience, would I join a startup again? Depending on the role, I absolutely would sort of do it all over again. Yeah.
Sounds like a great fit, like passion first, and Outfit's got a great deal. You've done brilliant work for them.
Yeah, I was very lucky, very, very lucky that I stumbled on Outfit. And also Bruce and I have a really good personal relationship as well, which is even better. I think when you've got that connection with your boss, it makes it a joy to go to work every day.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a question here from Bennett. What advice would you give a graphic design student self about the journey to head of product? And that's something that we didn't cover, right? You sort of stumbled into it. Outfit had advertised for a head of product and didn't really like any of the candidates, and then you put your hand up and said, "Why don't I give it a spin?" Right?
Yeah, I've often said, Bruce, in that process, Bruce was sort of being picky, and I've gone through a lot of these processes with Bruce where we've hired for some quite important roles. And I didn't quite realize why he was being so picky, and I thought maybe he was nervous to bring someone really new in, and that the stakes were quite high in terms of where the product needed to go. Advice that I would give a graphic design student, it's quite a big jump between design and product. So I mean, for me, there was no real logical path, but I think spending like, if you can get yourself into an organization that one has a product, or there's obviously a lot of different, as a designer, you find yourself able to choose where you want to go. You can almost do anything. Everyone needs design and marketing. So I would say align yourself with the type of business that you might want to transition into in terms of a product team. That would be my first piece of advice, and try and spend as much time around around the product people to make sure that it's something that you want to do, because product's quite hard. As a role, they kind of don't tell you that, that definitely doesn't come on the label. So yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's not a journey, like it's not a prescribed path, right? You start as a graphic designer, you become a UXer, you move up to product person, head of product, whatever. That's so many product people come from so many different varied backgrounds, whether it's technology or customer, the business, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right. There's so many avenues at it. You hear about engineers that transition to product. I think a lot of different roles are in contact with product, and then you kind of realize whether you've got a passion for that or not. I remember when I read the job ad for Outfit, and I think I ticked maybe 2 or 3 of the points, but I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to apply and see. And I think it's sort of a lot of the time it's my willingness to have a crack at things that have gotten me over the line. So, perhaps it's just that it's have a look and see if there's any roles out there, and see if your skill set translates to what that product or that PM role really, really needs. Yeah,
I've got to agree with Marty Kagan. It's one of the hardest roles on the team. Everybody else gets to concentrate on their specified thing. The product person's got to do whatever it takes. So it's got to be a calling, right? It's got to be your passion.
It really does. You have to be very aware that you're probably going to have to say no more often than not, and you're not going to please everyone. And if you get comfortable with that, and you get comfortable with small wins, then I think it's definitely definitely something that you'll find rewarding.
Yeah. So Nicholas has got a question. What's the most challenging part of being head of product?
I think I've just covered it. It's the
Yeah.
fact that you literally have to say no to people, and that can be really hard. And it's not always, you don't always get gifted a comment from someone internally, and you kind of get to have that conversation. A lot of the time, it's when you're sitting on calls with clients, or you're going through that process, and you have to say no. It's really hard to say no to people. Especially if you've come from, for me, I came from roles where, being in CS, you really want to deliver for the client, and as product, you can't deliver everything. Otherwise, you're not going to deliver on the vision and the roadmap and what's important. So yeah, it's saying no and deciding what to say no to, and then living with that choice.
Bennett's got another question. It's a difficult question. It's like, pick your favorite child. Which role in your product team could you not do without? So who is your favorite member of your product team?
Oh my God.
Most needed, most depended on?
Who could I not do without? Look, you can't do without the product manager. And it's for us, there's quite a few of them, but without the PM, we wouldn't be able to bring the right people together at the right time. So although they're not always, they're not always executing on everything at every given moment, they're absolutely keeping track of everything and making sure, there's a little bit of crossover, I guess, with a Scrum Master role at times as well. But yeah, I couldn't do without the PM for sure. That was one of the first roles that we hired.
Yeah, and they're flexible, right? Again, it's back to the passion. As being a PM, you've got to accept that you're going to have to do stuff that's outside your PD.
Yeah, that's right.
Bill's got a question that's, well, it's not a question, it's a statement, but let's make it into a question. In Silicon Valley, they say hire 5 PMs and you might get one you want to keep. Is that a statement that resonates with you?
I wish I had that luxury. I think that's one thing, working for a startup and hiring roles. I've always heard the term slow to hire, quick to fire. And in the early days, we hired some people that, weren't right culturally, and you feel it instantly. Like within a week, you've made the wrong choice. So for me, although it's important to look at the skill set and the experience, the culture fit for us is the most crucial thing. So I've not had that ability to kind of hire, 5 and hope one works out. I've had to be really diligent in who I brought into the team, because product at the time, we were, when I hired Tom as our first PM, I knew that there was going to be a lot of pressure on both of us to deliver. And we had to interface with so many different people in the business. So my first PM had to work out. Yeah,
for sure. Just okay, one last question from Meta, and then we'll move over to the panel. So were there any learnings that you got from being in an early stage startup that you didn't get in an agency?
Oh my God, so many. Like agency world and startup world are completely different, I think. One of the things I've really reflected on, if we started the journey again, what would I do differently in the context of product, is I think I would have had someone very specifically in charge of the product. So even if it wasn't their full-time role, even if we didn't have the luxury of having a PM, I would have been more deliberate about that, hiring for product as early as possible, and having someone as, the one person that's, losing sleep over the product. I would have done that. I would have done that early. I think from an agency perspective, working as a designer, I didn't often have to get in front of the clients other than to take feedback. So selling and understanding really common objections, I think, helped a lot as well. As I sort of progressed through those different roles, I'd sat in those meetings where I'd been, absolutely torn to shreds because of something I said or, a misstep. So you learn to adapt and kind of think about all the different angles when you go into a sales pitch. And sometimes, in agency land, you're a little bit protected by the account managers or whatever else. So startup life definitely exposes you to almost every role possible in a traditional business really quickly.
Yeah, that's a good ethos. It's something we're still growing into here in Brisbane. There's still a lot of companies out there that wouldn't know what to do with a product manager.
Oh God, no.
I was talking to somebody just the other day. It's quite a common occurrence that you've got a dev team burning 50K a week, and there's nobody telling them what they should be doing. They're just making it up as they go. Yeah,
that's absolutely. I mean, we certainly weren't burning that, but the dev team for a while was a little bit self-directed, like I was saying. So having someone thinking about that a little bit earlier on might have sort of set us on a slightly different path.
It's very lonely. Sorry, David. We'll field your question in the next part. We're going to move on to imposter syndrome now with the rest of the panelists. Hey, Darius and Nick, welcome.
Hey, how
just
are
to
you?
catch everybody up, after we've had this long chat with Ash. Darius, so Health Engine's been a massive success in Australia. You've been working on it for over 10 years now. Can you tell us a little bit about that product?
Yeah, so we would describe ourselves as Australia's largest consumer healthcare platform. We actually originally started off over 10 years ago as an online health directory. So a bit like a Yellow Pages for Health, where we tried to help patients who were looking for a particular type of provider or a particular type of medical interest or procedure, and direct them to the right provider that could deliver them the right care at the right place at the right time. And over the years, we've understood the market a lot better and understood what patients are looking for and what providers are looking for. And the nuts and bolts of it is we've built a health appointment marketplace where through making appointments available online to be booked, we can effectively connect patients and providers together. But that's just the start. I mean, we've been on this journey for over 10 years now. A lot of our efforts have been around health appointments, but there's so much that we're looking to do just across the entire end-to-end healthcare journey that we're really looking to enrich. I look at healthcare compared to many other verticals, and for me, healthcare in some ways feels quite behind from some of the other verticals. So I think there's a lot of innovation that can happen in healthcare, and it's really exciting for us to be leading this effort here in Australia.
Awesome. And how many people are you now?
Probably about 100.
Okay.
Yeah, off the top of my head. Yeah.
All in WA.
Mostly in WA. So we've got a bunch of people over in Sydney, but yeah, largely in Perth.
Yeah, great. So Nick, tell us about Xplorate. How long have you been with Xplorate now?
So been with Xplorate just over a year now. So celebrate 1 year in lockdown. So it was a pretty cool house party.
And what does Xplorate do? What are you famous for?
Yeah, so basically, if you import or export containers, then that's where we fit into the space. Importing and exporting containers is quite a complex problem. It's a very old industry, and there's just been like no real tech as part of it. So we've come in and just tried to make the whole industry a lot more transparent in terms of the communication from point A to point B when there's delays, because when you're moving a container from China to the Netherlands, there's a lot in between that can go wrong, often may go wrong, and then like us as sort of say you're travel agents, we can actually then help find like better solutions, or like, so when things do go wrong, you've got options, because you have to just be realistic and expect that things do go bad, but we're there to actually help.
Yeah. So having talked to you guys earlier, there's a lot of similarity that you wouldn't really expect between Health Engine and Exploit, just because of the servicing markets that are quite antique and insist on being antique, and it's quite a challenge to get them to want to adopt new technologies.
Yeah, because we actually pivoted about almost 12 months ago, where we tried to solve just one part of the problem. Turns out companies don't know like that number. They treat their freight operations as like an entire piece, and usually outsource that to what's known as a freight forwarder. And so for us to then be able to talk to them, we had to then expand our services. So it was a bit of a pivot, but I have relabeled pivot to expand, so it sounds better. So that's my marketing side coming in. But so we expanded our services to then offer the full suite, and then we could then give that number. And now we're talking apples to apples with customers, and then we've just seen insane growth since then.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we've had to do something similar in health. I remember about 10 years ago, you had medical practices that were still running really old computers and really old software programs, and just to introduce this concept of online appointments was new. And as much as I really believe in customer validation and market validation, there was a certain amount of conviction that we had to apply in getting this product out the door and getting customers to adopt it. I often liken it to when Apple decided to remove the headphone jack from the iPhone. Right? Nobody was asking for it. Right? Nobody had problems around it necessarily, but they had a vision and they trusted their conviction and essentially pushed us through. And we've had to do that many times on our journey in innovating in healthcare.
Yeah, great. That really ties into our topic, like trusting your own bets and not giving into imposter syndrome. So just to round it out, tell us a little bit about your personal background, Darius. Like we've been talking about, product managers come up from all different categories.
Yeah, Ash's story actually resonates quite strongly with me, because I kind of stumbled into product management as well. I back when I was in university, I actually studied medicine, but about four years into it, I decided, no, I want to do something different, and I officially took 2 years leave and did a computer science degree. And in my heart, I've actually always been passionate about technology. I would describe myself as a geek. I would describe myself as a creator of products. But back then, I didn't think of it as product management, right? I thought about it as just software development. I wanted to be a software engineer. But I was also passionate about health as well, and that's essentially what got me into medical school in the first place. And after I completed my computer science degree, I was working as a software engineer across a couple of organizations. And it was only really then that I really realized that I wanted to create the product and not just write the code, but also, be able to understand the customer and what their needs are and what is the right product that's going to really create value on their end. And from there, it really made me double down on product management and essentially product leadership. And fast forward to today, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm really enjoying it. Product is hard, without a doubt, but I'm really enjoying it.
Well, and if you're a founder, you have to, right? But yes, product is a calling that you stumble into. That's the common story. Yeah. And how about you, Nick? Tell us about your story, your backstory of coming to be head of product at Exploit.
Yeah, so I think like everyone else, I didn't study product management at uni. I instead studied like IT and design for a few years, and then rolled into working at a creative agency. Went through 3 of those, because that's what, I don't know, as a uni student, that's where you think you're meant to end up. And then I was like freelancing on the side, and so I've done about 8 years of freelance, I think all up, over 100 clients. Through that, taught myself marketing, and then that's where I landed a gig at Tanda, which is like a Brisbane-based startup. I was there, I think, as employee number 9 And when I left, I think 3 years later, they had about just over 100. So did marketing there, left there to then work and start 2 online businesses and grew those from 0 orders a month to over 2,000 orders a month. And that's where I started importing stuff from China. So I taste of that. And then a couple of years later, I heard about X-Rate and what problem they were solving. And I was like, I know that problem. I have ordered containers from China and had no idea what's going on. And yeah, so I think the hiring process there, I think I met with the one of the founders, Connor, I think 3 times over like 3 months, just coffee, and then just eased in. And then so I joined X-Rate as head of product, and yeah, so I'm wearing many hats there, from designer to marketer to then product manager, and yeah, just learning hard and fast in terms of the industry. So in terms of imposter syndrome, I'm a tech guy building freight software, and I spend a lot of time talking to freight people and trying to use a lot of terms. Geez, I have never worked in an industry where there's like so many acronyms, and it's insane. So like sometimes our team chats, I'm just like, yep, you just need to write that one down. Yep. Like sometimes I'll be like checking my phone, I'm like, yep, okay, that's what I thought that was. Yep, keep going. But yeah, so the product team, we work really close with the dev team, just because we still are building version 1 of so many things like inside the system. That fast iteration and feedback loop is very important. We don't really have the leisure of design, build, but the users test it for use it for a couple months and then redesign. It's definitely a lot faster. But as the team grows, we'll be able to slow down to a more happier pace, I think.
Great. What you didn't mention is you were growth marketing manager at Tanda, right? Not just marketing. So you're very focused on the numbers.
Yeah. So always been very data driven. I love spreadsheets. I'm not like the traditional marketer. I was very self-taught. Yeah, like Google AdWords. I know how to do that pretty well. And yeah, it's digital. It's all tracked. So it's all quite easy. Just look at the numbers and make sure you get that return that you're wanting. And yeah, seems great. Easy to me, but yeah.
So transitioning into our topic for the evening, imposter syndrome. As a starting point, let's say, when have you felt that you've struggled to come up with an authoritative position on a topic? To anybody that wants to put their hand up.
To kick things off, I've gone to a few customer meetings or demos, and I'm sitting across from someone that's been in the logistics industry for 20, 30 years. And here am I, like 3 months in, been like, I build freight software. Hello. It's very, very daunting to try and be that like leader, I suppose, that we're trying to sell them software for them to use. And thankfully, I wasn't the only one in the room from our side. I had a founder with me, and I was like, okay, I'm going to let them do the talking, and I'm just going to learn real fast.
Yeah, in my case, it's it's
Yeah,
probably.
right.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Yep. So I was gonna say my example. Our CEO is actually a medical doctor by trade. He's been a doctor for over 20 years now. And often is the case that when you're having to make some product decisions driven by a lot of medical and health context, it's very easy to feel in a similar situation to Nick to feel like you don't have the authority to make that decision. But at the end of the day, I exist in this role to fulfill several purposes, and one is to actually make some product decisions in this domain. So one of the things that I've done over the last 10 years is to really refine my understanding of the industry. Having gone to medical school and actually seeing some of it firsthand has absolutely helped me as well. But I'm always playing catch up. I'm never going to know as much as our CEO on all things medical and health and nature. So it's just one of those things where I just continuously commit myself to understanding more and more so that I can make really educated decisions in this domain.
Yeah, I would say my experience is pretty similar to Nick and Darius. It's definitely been in the early days where, you're sitting across from a CMO. They're generally your decision maker, and they are kind of the budget keeper as well. So you've really got to know, exactly their pain points, and you've got to overcome a lot of objections, especially when you're a bit of a challenger to the status quo in how they might be handling process, or in our case, marketing production. So I've experienced some very scary people, and tried to not flinch too much when they throw you the hard questions. But early days when you're trying to establish yourself as a thought leader, it's definitely felt like a pretty imposter moment for me.
Right. Okay, so therapy time. Can you think of a time when you really felt like, oh my God, I'm not up to this? I've been pulling the wool over everybody's eyes, and I'm really not the person that they thought I was.
I've got a very recent example. It all started when COVID kicked off. This is a once in a lifetime moment for a lot of us, right? And at least in the healthcare setting, the entire industry got flipped on its head. Everyone was self-isolating and social distancing. They weren't walking into medical practices. Telehealth started to really emerge as something that the entire industry had to adopt, and everything that we thought we knew about the industry and everything that we thought we understood about customers literally got flipped on its head. And so we were there trying to ensure continuity of business for our customers because they had medical practices to run, but also continuity of business for us to ensure that our product could create value for our customers. And there were many moments and many decisions that got made throughout the 2 to 3 month period where we had to make a lot of fast decisions and create products, off the back of those fast decisions. And you look at it and go, well, that didn't have the desired outcome that we wanted. And I remember as restrictions started easing here in Australia, we actually caught our breath a little and decided to do an all of business retro on all of the decisions and all of the products that we actually built throughout the 2 to 3 month period. And there were many things that we didn't do right as product. But the funny thing is, at the end of it, we looked at it at a very macro level and said, at the end of it, we probably wouldn't have done anything differently, because you looked at the competition and they were all building very similar products. They had all made very similar decisions. But I remember at the heat of the moment throughout that entire period, it was very easy to go, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making the wrong decisions here. We're building the wrong products. But, this is, it is a once in a lifetime moment. But it is one of those things I think that we all feel as product managers and product leaders day to day. This imposter syndrome is real. And in a time of crisis, it's very easy for that feeling to actually be accentuated as well.
I think
Anyone else? Ash, Nick?
Yeah, I often feel like that when I'm sort of in quite technical conversations. So my background's more in, design, marketing, that sort of space. And I think at times, as a product head in the room, you've kind of got to be comfortable with not always understanding the minutiae of the tech. But my nature is to kind of want to understand everything at times behind, what we're doing and what that means. And definitely from a tech perspective, sometimes I feel like I don't quite know enough, but inevitably you're there to sort of represent a specific part of the process. So yeah, tech conversations can often make me feel like a little bit of an imposter.
I've got a bit of a non-product one. So a few years ago, I wrote an article on LinkedIn about buying my apartment, and it got picked up from News Corp, and it was actually front page of news.com.au for the entire day. And then it got picked up further, and I got invited to talk on Triple J Hacked, which is like a live TV show. And they were going to fly me down to Sydney, and the whole pitch was I was going to be up against a baby boomer and someone, I don't know, 10 years older than me, arguing about home ownership and who's responsible for kids not being able to afford homes. And I'm just like, oh my, what is this? And part of me was just like, I should not do this, but yes, but this has got to end interesting, but maybe thankfully or not thankfully, it didn't go ahead. I think the episode got canned, but yeah, I was keen to give it a crack and see where that led. Yeah, I was definitely shitting my pants a bit.
So are there times when you look out to the market? Okay, we've talked a little bit about internal decision-making processes, but do you look out to the market and see competitors to your products or other product people that are just blazing a trail and you go, oh my God, I'm not up to that?
Yeah, so I had a bit of a stalk last week. So there's maybe a loose competitor that recently got funding from Amazon, or their Amazon logistics division or whatnot. And yeah, basically the link was like circling around internally and was like, oh, like who are these guys? We've never heard of them. And I was like, oh my God, they've got like Jeff Bezos behind them. This is huge. I had like a good dig on their tech, and everything that I could find compared to what we have customer facing, ours is, I think, better. So at like first glance, I was like, oh no. But then just, I don't know, stalking them a little bit, I got the confidence that I was like, no, we've got some good stuff. Like we can keep going. Like we don't go home just yet. So yeah. Like,
okay. So that's one strategy. Is like, yeah, don't give in to appearances and dig in and validate whether under the hood the thing that you're looking at is actually better or not. And if it is, find ways to compensate, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the matter, Ashley Barriers?
Yeah, for me, it's actually a little different. I do look at the competition from time to time, and I think our competition is actually doing some pretty good work. But I don't do it so much at a product leader comparison level. I get to play this game a little as a founder, though, where I get to take off my product leader hat, and as a founder, I can go, are there any other heads of products out there where if they had this role in this company, could they do a better job than I can? And where I always land is that so much of what makes us really effective product leaders is contextual to the organization in which we operate in, right? We are masters in our domain, not just because we understand product management and product leadership principles, but it's our understanding of the vertical and our understanding of our customers and our understanding of the business and what its requirements are, our ability to understand what the founders are looking for. So I get to wear dual hats in this world. I mean, I do that comparison a lot, and it's a really good comparison to actually do from time to time, and you very quickly realize that there are some great product people out there, and I know that there are some great product people out there who are better than I am. But when it comes time to actually bring it back into what this business needs, we always find ourselves at the point where we believe that a founder who wears a product leader hat is probably best suited to wearing the head of product hat in this particular business. But that may change with time, for sure.
Yeah, and if you ever find out that the answer is different, you can always hire that person, right?
Absolutely. And then I've got to work out what I'm doing.
I think I've been quite lucky because I've worked so closely with Bruce over the years, and one thing that he's taught me from really early on is that you should always be hiring people better than you. So if I'm not hiring people that are better than me in my product team, then I'm absolutely doing something wrong. So I'm constantly looking for those people that have different skill sets or are absolutely going to teach me something or bring something new to our team. So yeah, I'm very much always looking for people that are better in the product space. On the flip side, looking at competition, obviously Canva's a pretty big, sort of line that people draw between Outfit, and we've over the years really kind of welcomed that conversation, I guess, because it's drawn attention to the brand automation space, but we focus on a slightly different segment to where Canva is as well. So for us, that perceived competition has been really great, especially being an Aussie startup as well. And then, there's plenty other competitors that we sort of look at, but they kind of look at different parts of the, I guess, the brand automation space as well. So we're always kind of keeping an eye on them and seeing what they're doing. And I think it's healthy to look at what your competition's doing. And if you're burying your head in the sand and not looking, you could sort of wake up to a nasty surprise, I guess. So yeah, we have our eyes on competitors for sure, but we're also really sort of focused at the vision that we've got and where we want to inevitably be in the market.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not really imposter syndrome, but there's some interesting stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like, they say that, if you don't have any competition, then you're probably building something that nobody wants. But also, it's interesting probably to reassess your niche. Everybody, like, there's so many different sub-markets out there and sub-jobs that people are trying to perform. And not everybody's doing it exactly the same, like that comparison with Canva. They perform one job for a certain demographic, and that doesn't mean that you can't have a niche to be doing something for a whole different group of people. And the same for any given product, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so moving on to where we want to get to. By the end of the evening, we'd really like to be able to give people some takeaways on how to be able to assess themselves, or whether they're feeling imposter syndrome, or whether they need to push through, or whether they really are an imposter. That's the assessment that you always need to be measuring yourself against, right? Unless you're crazy. Like, most people know Dunning-Kruger, and that guy that really assesses himself to be much better at what he's doing than he really is, just because he doesn't have enough experience to know what experience he doesn't have. What strategies do you have for not just pushing through imposter syndrome, but being able to make assessments of whether you're making the right decisions and to be able to bet on yourself? Anyone?
Yeah, so probably my biggest one is I love talking to customers or users the most. That helps me build the most confidence to go, say, maybe up against other people in the company if they have competing ideas on how to solve a problem. If I can always, say, provide that data or insight and be like, this customer or like this user like said this, or they do it like this, it sort of centers that conversation around what's actually happening and not, say, someone's idea within the company of how it should work. Because I think too many times there's the trap of what people think is happening and then what's actually happening. So with us, half our platform is actually like our company uses our own platform. So I've got like a bit of a cheat that I can just go into the next room and everyone in that room uses our system. So feedback loop is brilliant. So to do any operation side features is great because I can basically launch it, or like say test it with them, launch it, and then see how that's working. Whereas, like, imagine trying to do that with an end user customer, like that can't really happen in the same way. I'll need to have like a different set of tactics to approach that for our actual end user customers. But yeah, customers are awesome.
Absolutely. But like we talked about, Ash, like early on, prioritization was pretty straightforward. It was what people would pay for. But then you end up in this jungle of potential opportunities that you can follow, and you have to be focused on what bets you're going to place. What are your strategies for making sure that you're placing the right bets?
Well, I guess like Nick sort of covered
betting on
data and betting on myself.
Yeah.
Data is a pretty important one, I think. But conversely, trusting your instincts as a professional in your field. So Darius was sort of touching on it before. He, coming from a medical background, that that's going to put you in a position, hopefully, that you feel a little bit less like an imposter. I think I think product people and product professionals in general are probably quite prone to this, because it sounds like most product people don't set out to be product people initially. And so you always kind of feel like you've stumbled on this role and maybe you shouldn't quite be there. And I think that's been something that's contributed to my feeling of, maybe not being quite right for the role, or not stumbling on the role at the right time, or not being prepped enough. So there's a little bit of that. Just to kind of step sideways a bit on the question and go in a different direction, I was thinking a lot about why I personally feel imposter syndrome as well. And I think a lot of the time it's a bit of a personal critique that, I kind of go through that process quite a lot, where I'm quite hard on myself. And I remember as a kid, I was even, sort of like that. I remember when I used to play soccer at quite a competitive level, and I'd sort of come off the field, and my coach would say to me, "Oh, you did this great, Ash, and that was a good pass, and you defended well there." And I had a list of things that I knew I did wrong. And so I think for me, as a growing up and becoming an adult and understanding maybe there's a time and place for being critical on yourself, but then also, knowing how to step back and also celebrate what you have done well. And I think that leads a little bit into how product teams need to celebrate their own wins as well. It sort of links back to what we were saying before. You have to say no to people. You're never going to please everyone. And you're always going to have a massive backlog that's, staring at you after every successful sprint. So, celebrating the small wins, obviously being realistic about what you can improve on, but also, being a little bit easy on yourself as well, and not beating yourself up too much about where you can improve, because you're going to have plenty of time, to continue to improve if you really love product and you really want to stay in that space.
Great. How about you, Darius?
Yeah, for me, what it really comes down to is just realizing what it is that we do as product people. And I think one of the things that we really do well is that we always ask questions, right? We always talk to many, many stakeholders, whether it's the customer, whether it's people in the business, whether it's the founder, just to understand more about the problem and the opportunity. And you can gather inputs for days, weeks, months, and you're never going to stop. But at some point, you need to make a decision. So one of the things that I see a lot of people that suffer from imposter syndrome, and I've been in this world myself as well, is to keep second guessing myself and wait for that perfect decision. But from my perspective, if you wait for that perfect decision, things will stagnate, right? You'll inhibit your ability to progress your product development. So for me, a decision is better than indecision, right? A fast educated decision is better than indecision. And there's very few things out there that you cannot roll back. So, from my perspective, it's something that I always keep in the back of my head. Every time we're tackling a big problem, obviously get the right inputs so that you can make the right decision, but just make it and back yourself. And one of the things that really helps is at Health Engine, one of our core values is internal locus of control. It's this idea that you can internally control the outcome of your actions, and it helps project confidence. And it's honestly not false confidence. It's a confidence and a belief that you can actually deliver what you say you're going to deliver.
That's great. So Ash, you talked about the dip as a mental model that you use for dealing with this as well. Can you tell us a bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a little bit. I've sort of done a lot of thinking about this in the lead up, and with a design background, it's when you look at startup, sort of the path that startups take and the path that you go on as a designer, they're really similar. So a lot of the time, you start out with a good idea. It's like a brief. You've got the brief. You have an understanding of where you want to go, and you sort of start to chip away at ideas, or you start to get a little bit of momentum, and obviously, you start to develop the product, and inevitably you're going to hit this point where you've either got, a little bit of creative block, or you've not signed as many customers as you thought you would, or the growth's not happening as quickly, and that's sort of the dip. And I think that dip is where imposter syndrome, I believe, takes hold, and whether you're in product or whether you're in sales or you're a founder, I think that dip is kind of what you have to push through, and inevitably you're going to push through it. You're probably going to get, runs on the board, whether it's pushing through the problem and solving it from a product perspective, or as a creative pushing through the mental block that sometimes you get, and then you sort of you get through that dip, and you're able to come full circle. That's sort of, that's just been my musings on the dip, and seeing very similar patterns to how I used to feel when I was going through a design brief. And sometimes it is just sort of sticking it out, and like Darius said, if you're going to make a decision, sticking with it. And then it's very similar to, I guess, the agile methodology, where you you kind of build, test, and kind of iterate and continue to iterate. So in terms of imposter syndrome, I think we can kind of take a little bit from the principles that we use to build software as well.
After we talked about it, I looked at a few different interpretations of the dip. One I liked was Seth Godin's. I think he's got a whole book on it. But one interpretation is you fall into the dip in the first place because you're doing this Dunning-Kruger thing, and you didn't really know what you were up for, and that's why you've fallen into this crevasse. And it's as you become more informed about the topic and more, you can apply better judgment. That's how you pull yourself out of that bit.
Yeah, that it's there's also another. I'm going to mess this up a little bit, but there's another kind of concept about crossing the chasm as well, which is sort of about adoption of your product and things like that, and you can see that there is this very common pattern of sort of quick growth, and then you kind of either plateau or dip, and you come back through it. So it's just about sort of having a little bit more knowledge, or trying a few different things and pushing through that barrier, I think.
And that matters obviously to what Darius has been saying, but your take on this. The best thing about product managers is if you don't know, ask. Sorry, Nick.
Sorry. Ash touched on mindset a little earlier, and I think hopefully you guys can back me up on this, but I feel like we spend a lot of our time with a bit of like a negative, maybe not negative thought process, but like our to-do list is forever growing, and you're always just trying to build, like, it's always like catch up. I feel like in my own head, like you're always trying to make sure that like each team has like enough to actually do their job. You're trying to maybe get wireframes that you forgot about, but then something that I don't do enough is look backward and see what we've achieved. It's always just like, okay, and next sprint. It's just always either this sprint or next sprint. It's never like, okay, let's pause for 5 minutes. And I'm not talking about like doing like a retro and really critique the last sprint, but more, hey, this is what we've built in the last 3 months, and all these users are using this stuff. So, for me, I'm trying to do a lot more of that. I think we're getting to that point now at X-Ray where the to-do list is now getting quite long, and that's where we're looking to like hire hopefully product manager, maybe designer sort of role to actually then board and then try and hopefully chop that list in half, and my head's a bit happier.
Yeah,
I mean, that is-
I definitely back that. I think you can Google this. There's thousands of articles on this. Right, product is a bit of a thankless job. Right, I've seen businesses from startups through to scale up. I mean, Health Engine is definitely in that phase at the moment, and products go from problem identification through to ideation through to actually getting in the hands of thousands of customers. And often it's the case that when it's getting in the hands of thousands of customers, that's when sales and marketing really take over. And there's a lot of recognition that's provided at that point, but very little that happens early on in the journey when product has managed to prove a viable concept around a particular problem. And I definitely agree with Nick. I mean, I actually go out of my way to provide that recognition where I believe it's deserved. And it definitely goes a long way to helping product managers shed this idea of imposter syndrome, that everything that they're doing is wrong. So yeah, that's something I believe in as well.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a perception that product managers are about saying no, even amongst product managers.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost, right? You've got to say no to things so that you can say yes to something that's more important.
And I think also that approach isn't just like, it's not just about the product team, you know, not celebrating the small wins. I think that's very true of all startups and all roles in startups. Like I remember, you know, if you allow yourself to, you will continue to shift the goalposts and you won't celebrate anything. And I remember we got quite a large client about a year and a half ago, and we kind of delayed the celebration. And I think there was a big learning for us of not doing that. Sometimes you just kind of have to go, all right, what are we going to do? Are we just going to have lunch and that's going to be the thing, you know, and actually go and kind of put the time aside, celebrate it as a team, and then move on? Because if you let yourself, you will delay the celebration, and you'll never kind of give yourself the pause that achievement deserves. So yeah, definitely a product thing, because we're in that cycle of kicking off the next sprint. But I think it's, no one's really immune to that in startup life.
Great. Yeah, I struggle with this myself as well, and sometimes I try to explain it to people as you're guiding a team through a minefield, and if you don't step on any mines, it looks easy, right? It's only when you do it wrong and you step on the mines, and in that way it's thankless, because you know, you ship something and it works and it looks like, yeah, of course, duh, it was going to work. But there were so many things that could have gone wrong along the way that you have to steer it through. So back to our dip analogy. Does anyone have any examples of having fallen in that dip and then had to claw their way out? Tools that you've used to, like, you have, okay, so Darius, you said, well, very few decisions, two-way door, very few decisions can't be rolled back. But you must have at some time made a decision that you've gone, oh, that was actually a mistake. I needed more information. How did you recover?
For me, there's so very candidly, like, I make mistakes all the time, but you know, I realize that mistakes are a great opportunity to learn, and I view every one of those bad decisions as a lesson to be learned, and I think through those lessons over the years, it's
Sorry, we lost you.
Oh, sorry, I might have disconnected a little there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
Through those decisions over the years.
Yeah. So through the decisions that I've made, there's genuine lessons to be learned there, and I think every one of those lessons has made me a better product manager and product leader. And you know, going back to what I mentioned earlier around internal locus of control being one of our core values. Being in a leadership position in this business, but also being a founder, there's a realization that at the end of the day, yes, you're going to make mistakes, but you're the one that's going to drive the business and steer the business to where it needs to go. So, you know, get up, brush off the wounds and move on, right? Because there's genuine change that you can deliver in the market, and a lot of impact and a lot of value that you can create for your customers. So yeah, from my perspective, it's just about soldiering on, because if you're not going to do it, very few others will.
I think for me, the dip comes when I'm feeling really overwhelmed. So if I haven't sort of kept my questioning or my doubts in check about, a few different things, or I haven't had the right conversations, I can feel quite overwhelmed. And I generally, to deal with that, I will sort of reach out to Bruce and have a bit of a chat to him. And I think one thing that we've both sort of supported each other on over the years is similar to what Darius said, thinking about, who's best to be in that position. A lot of the time, the imposter syndrome comes in for me, where I sort of think, is there someone with 10 years experience on me that could be doing this better? Or, is there someone else that's run a very similar product who could be doing this? But Bruce is very kind and sort of patient, and we tend to remind each other that, well, we've done this for this long. Yes, we may have made a few mistakes, but inevitably we've found the right path, or we've gotten ourselves out of any missteps. So I think it's about keeping your confidence levels in check and making sure you're having healthy, open conversations, and not letting it sort of build up too much in terms of like internal dread.
It does sound really healthy. It reminds me of an anecdote you might know from Intel, where they talked about the revolving door. So they'd be like, well, because decisions take on a momentum of their own, right? And you just end up stuck on a path. So they'd be constantly asking themselves, well, if we left and we came back in again and we were brand new to this problem, we'd be trying to solve it in the same way. How about you, Nick?
I just trying to think how I sort of like measure when I'm in a dip, and I think it's just more my output. So in a way, I feel more accomplished when I'm knocking off, say, like a series of smaller things, and I can sort of feel that momentum. I think when I sort of maybe get stuck on like a larger problem, even though it might be going well, just mentally I haven't ticked anything off in a while, and so I just think I'm in that dip just purely because I haven't moved like the Jira ticket across in a while. So I don't know, you could slice that up into 10 tickets or something, but so like you write that to-do list, but you've added 3 things on there that you've already done, just so you can be like, yep. But yeah, like the dip, yeah, like there's the confidence and competence sort of thing, and I think I just keep thinking back to it, just like time will get me through. Maybe that's just blind faith, but like as long as I keep learning and everything, if I just keep going at it, I'll come back out. Hopefully. I think the fact that I'm like sort of still around in product, I think I've lasted and survived. But yeah.
Okay, so like just like Darius, keep getting feedback and keep moving, keep that delivery flow happening.
Yeah.
Great. Well, if none of you got any burning insights that you still haven't delivered for us, this is your last chance. No?
I think that there's one more that I definitely want to give, and that is it could be along the lines of sort of radical candor, or being quite honest. But I think one thing I've never been afraid to do is even tell my own team or clients I don't know, and I think that approach generally gets you the right audience. So people are less wanting to criticize you or, sort of have a go at you for your decisions, and they kind of understand, oh, well, if Ash is honest enough to say that she doesn't know, then, I'm more willing to help or have a little bit of empathy. So yeah, I find being really honest about what you do and don't know helps you, sets the right expectations, and then, allows you to kind of grow in the areas that you need to as well. And it's always nice to have a shortcut to learning something that you don't know as well. It kind of helps open you up to people, sharing their experiences and telling you how they've worked stuff out, or them just saying, hey, you know what, I don't really know either, and maybe we can solve it together.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's why you're such a great group of product leaders. I've come across product managers in my career who spend their entire day just in misery that people won't listen to them about what they really want to do. But at the end of the day, it's not about what you want to do, right? And it's not about you being right all the time. It's a real red flag if you're busy trying to impress your stakeholders or your team or whoever it is, that you know what you're talking about. Because the product manager needs to be a conduit for the best decisions being made, and that needs to be inclusive, right? And that absolutely requires radical candor. At least that's my take.
Yeah, agree.
Something I wanted to add, a few years ago, I did this thing where I challenged myself to go to about 3 to 4 meetups a week. And I went by myself, and it's very refreshing trying to network alone in like a room full of strangers, and you have to like introduce yourself and like really hone down like what you actually do, and then you definitely get that quick feedback loop on what people actually care about when you're listening, because when they're like, oh, I'll just grab another beer, you're like, okay, well, talk too long there. But I did it for about 6 months, going to like 3 events a week, and it was just met hundreds of people in the space in Brisbane, and it was like what was in my head of maybe where my skills were at compared to like where things actually were, just really set my confidence in terms of like a actual level, not like some dreamy like I'm like top or like I'm bottom. Like I was able to like really honestly gauge myself.
Yeah.
So I like really recommend it to anyone that's game enough. I'm definitely, hopefully post-COVID, I want to get back into it. But yeah, might have to be more screens, I think.
That's great. Any last words from you, Darius?
No, Nick's comments definitely resonate with me. I think a bit of calibration is important from time to time. I've been to a few minor product conferences in San Francisco and Singapore, and you meet all sorts of great product managers and product leaders, and it doesn't matter how experienced they are, they all suffer from the same imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so, there's a bit of group therapy every time I go to one of those conferences. And a bit of self-realization that it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're always going to suffer from it from time to time. And it's not a bad thing, right? It just comes with the role. But the key thing is to actually understand the strategies to get through it.
Yeah.
Great. So on that note, we'll open the floor to questions. So, organize that scaling. So has anybody got any thoughts on scaling organizations and product teams?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. I think one of the big things is to not lose focus on the people management side of things, or a lot of the people related issues. Ash, I'd imagine you're sort of early on this journey. We one of the things that we picked up along the way is this concept of Dunbar's number. Now, Dunbar's number will have many different labels depending on who describes it, but there's this point between 50 to 150 people in an organization where everything kind of changes, right? You go from this concept of clans to tribes or friends to acquaintances, and before you know it, the strength of the relationship just isn't there when you've gone from 50 to 100 people or 50 to 150 people. So you really need to understand what is going to be that glue, that process, that's really going to ensure that this business and this growing product organization stays together. So a comment that Ash made earlier around focusing on culture, I think is a really, really big thing, because as important as it is to find the right product manager or engineer or designer with the right technical fit, the cultural values and ensuring that they fit into the organization becomes really, really important as well, if not more important. So, over the last few years, one of the big things that I've effectively focused on as a product leader, funnily enough, is around people leadership and people management, because I think it's one of the big things that you really need to work on to get the most out of your people. A book that I'd really recommend around this, if people haven't read it already, is High Output Management by Andy Grove. It's an old book. I think it was published back in 1983, but there's so many concepts in that are really applicable to any business, no matter how small, how big you are. But as you look to grow, there's a lot of people management concepts in there. And, at the end of the day, as a product leader, people are your best form of leverage to deliver on the product strategy that you've laid out. So yeah, it's one of those things I'd really encourage any product manager or product leader to not lose sight on.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd second that. The only thing I'd add is there's an old adage. It's something to the effect of culture eats strategy for breakfast or something like that. And basically, if you don't have your culture in check, it can be a really hard transition to deliver on the strategy. So yeah, don't lose sight of your culture, and make sure that your founders still, having the platform to deliver on that, I think.
Thanks for that. What else have we got for questions? I'm relying on Jason Louise to put up good questions for us. No, we're stuck on this one. Okay, let's have a look through the questions, maybe. Oh, here we go. Okay, so Arun, what was the biggest unexpected lessons learned beyond the obvious? Learn the product, learn the industry, etc.
Something that I've learned from a few customers at the moment is maybe as a product guy, I'm trying to get people to use the
Now it's Nick's turn to freeze.
He's done it in a really good pose as well.
We'll have to come back to Nick. Did you have any thoughts on it, Darius or Ash?
I'm trying to understand the question. Is it in the context of imposter syndrome or just product leadership in general?
Probably product in general, I think, yeah. We'll get quite a few questions that aren't necessarily imposter.
Yeah.
People want to pick their brains on product.
I'm trying to think about this one. Ash, if you've got something, feel free to jump in sooner.
Or we can get back to Nick now that he's back.
Yeah, Nick, if you want to finish your point.
No, it's frozen again.
So, as a product guy, you're trying to work with customers to have them use the product more and more, and almost in a weird way, a bit of the KPI is the more time they spend using the product, the better. But then a lesson I've learned from a few customers is they don't want to use the product at all, because in their head, they just want to ship the container from A to B. They don't want to use us, but they do want to use us, but they don't want to log in and check. They just want to know when things go wrong. So it's now I'm trying to learn how we're going to interact with users by not using the platform. So it's trying to figure out those touch points where it's like, okay, I thought I was doing all these touch points inside the app. Now I need to figure out outside. So definitely outside the box. sort of thinking. So yeah, that was a bit of a curveball in that meeting.
I think recently I had a catch up with a few of our devs, and I've always thought that one of the most important things for product and tech is to kind of, you know, as the product lead, it's my job to give them the time and space that they need to work through, you know, features or problems. And I discovered last week that sometimes deadlines work. So it sounds weird because you really want to give the team, you know, enough time, but sometimes, yeah, that was a really unexpected thing is putting deadlines down, whether they'll necessarily meet them or not can sort of help. And sometimes you do need to scrutinize, you know, where your time's going and when the team's sort of going to start and stop different parts of a project. So yeah, sometimes deadlines are helpful, but that might help someone.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think deadlines it depends on the context, but I think deadlines in some ways are useful for controlling scope. So one of the things that we discuss internally is the concept of MVP thinking, and you can talk to many different product managers and engineers, and they'll all be calibrated across a different scale of MVP thinking. And some of the comments that I hear whenever a deadline is imposed is, oh, the product's not going to be high quality enough, or it's not going to do X, or it's not going to do Y. And this concept of scope versus quality really kicks in, because you can actually get a high quality product by reducing scope in order to meet a deadline. And it's definitely one of those things that I find is quite useful. On the original question though, one of the things that really stuck out to me, and definitely more as the organization grew, is that you cannot assume that people understand product. There's a reason why we're in this role, because our minds are built in a certain way to handle all of these inputs flying left, right, and center, and to be able to take those inputs, turn it into a successful product. And as you go through a product leadership career, one of the things that you'll quickly realize is that your job is not just about the product; it's about stakeholder management as well. And with some of that stakeholder management, you know, it could lead to things like business cases, inspiring the board, or, you know, getting your executive team aligned to something that you really believe in. And a lot of it really comes down to actually explaining what you do as a product manager or a product leader. Sometimes that's quite easily forgotten, but sometimes you actually really do need to express that to get your point across. So yeah, it's one of those assumptions that I see a lot of people make, including myself. But one of those assumptions that I think we actually need to get rid of and really just reinforce what it is we do as product people.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm struggling to remember the term for this. It's I'll come back to it. There's a word for it. It's the tyranny of knowledge, I think it is. It's when you know something, it's very hard to visualize the fact that other people don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd be interested in the panel's view on their growth and skill sets as their organization scaled. How did they approach team leadership and transition from jack of all trades product manager to guiding a team of people with similar skills?
This is an interesting one, because if I had to describe myself today, I still think I'm a jack of all trades. I think I'm more of a generalist than a specialist, unless you believe that product management is the specialty. So one of the things that I've always held true to myself is, and I remember this from one of Martin Erickson's earliest blog posts around the intersection of business and technology and design, that still holds true. And one of the reasons why I think you know, I do very well in product is because I still keep that in the back of my head every time I am looking at product. One of the things that I've definitely done, just touching on this topic of growth, is I've actually set myself a personal OKR to read a number of books every month. And books for me are probably one of the primary methods for me to really upskill and get new perspectives on a lot of different topics. I know Ken Norton publishes a great list for anyone that's looking to start off in a career in product. There's many more great books out there, and more being published day after day. Really encourage reading as a great way to really grow from product management to product leadership.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of myself. I don't know. There's something about a book that somebody's taken the time to really correlate the information into something meaningful. Podcasts, yeah, great, but it's a bit more ephemeral.
There's a book that Bruce recommended to me quite early on. It's The Hard Thing About Hard Things. That's a really good one. Just kind of gives you a really big slap in the face about what it's like to work in a startup. The other thing, so to the question, I guess, of guiding a team of people with similar skills, I think one thing I work really hard on with the team at Outfit is to get the guys to think about where they do want to start to specialize, because I think there's so many different paths you can go down, and part of that question for me is to assess what skills or what enthusiasm we've got in the product team, and as we evolve, who naturally wants to work more with the data, maybe data science, or I know Tom's got a really big passion for that. So one of our UXs, Nicola, she's really wanting to understand how to conduct research better, and have less bias in that space. So I make a point of really talking to the team very specifically about that in one-on-ones as much as possible, to make sure that they're focusing inward as well as, the job that they need to do day to day, because in product teams, you can find yourself busy doing the task at hand and not really thinking about your own personal growth as well. So it's my job, I think, as a leader, to really make sure the guys are thinking about that quite a lot, and making sure they understand that is an important space for them to exist in, and we're not just there to just only deliver. They can take time out to grow personally as well.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that as well. It's like, when I've got all these different people working with me on this thing that I'm trying to knit together, I don't expect them to be little mini versions of me, right? Product managers are people that have found their own way, and the other people on their team are finding their way as well, right? And it's about helping them to find a way that's unique to them. It's not about prescribing a path of what you think their product management career should look like.
Yeah, and hiring for diversity in your team is important, because you're covering a range of views and opinions, and hopefully that's going to land you, in sort of the best position to have considered the problem from many different angles, and you're obviously going to cover off on, a lot of different points of view. So, yeah, hiring, like, it's more of a hiring thing, but hiring for diversity is important as well. You don't just want to hire lookalikes.
Yeah. There's studies that show that, across multiple years, but I think Google did it again recently, where you get a bunch of people with very similar points of view, you put them in a room, you ask them to solve a task, and they come out going, "Yeah, we nailed it." Where you put a bunch of people with diverse opinions in the room, and they come out going, "Oh my God, that was so hard." But they've actually managed to solve the task, unlike the people that thought they'd nailed it. Yeah, diversity is massively important. So, do we think age, experience, gender, or any other aspects impact imposter syndrome?
Oh, that's a big question to unpack. I definitely think, for myself personally, being a woman, identifying as a woman has probably contributed to my sense of imposter syndrome at times. Like, at times there's definitely studies on, if even just applying for jobs, like if women don't meet almost 100% of the criteria, they won't apply for a job, and there's a range of studies around that. But I think ultimately it comes down to personal experience and the path that you've taken to get to the product role that probably has the most impact on it.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit on like job ads. Just being on like say both sides of a job ad. I think a lot of people applying for the job don't understand that most of the time that's like a wish list. So you don't have to tick everything off. Like I reckon if you can tick off 30%, submit your application, because going off the numbers, sometimes you might just get hired because you're best of the worst bunch. But yeah, like
then if you don't try, right? Yeah.
like I've definitely written job ads where you're like, okay, they should have this, this, and this, but honestly, if they had one of those, excellent. And then the rest can be trained and everything. But yeah, so hopefully people out there actually like don't get scared off that they don't tick every box.
Yeah, that's kind of a life strategy too, right? It's like you don't have to pre-assume whether you're good enough, but the world will tell you that.
Yeah,
How do you find out?
but like definitely don't lie in the interview. Like if you don't know it, I reckon own that and be like, yep, I don't know how to do that, but that sounds cool. I want to learn how to do that. So enthusiasm just goes a long way, I think. And yeah.
I think the key thing is to just be true to yourself and you know who you are and how capable you are as an individual, right? Everyone's got gaps, without a doubt. Now, I don't think anybody, regardless of your age, experience, or gender, is immune from imposter syndrome. But I definitely do think there are elements in each of these that might give rise to that in any business setting. You know, I've heard all sorts of comments in the past around this person's more experienced than that person, and you know, it can give rise to these sorts of feelings. But I think I don't think anyone's immune from it.
Yeah, everyone's got gaps. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. But inversely, sometimes somebody who's very early in their journey just has some magical quality or some insight that nobody else is seeing. It's again, it's again Ben Horowitz, the hard thing about hard things guy, and he said this in the book, right? Was hire for strength, not lack of weakness.
Yeah.
I think a little bit to that point, Ant. We with Outfit, I think if Bruce really knew the market. And didn't sort of just take the opportunity that Red Hat sort of presented to us at face value. You know, Outfit might not exist. So sometimes there's a real beauty in kind of it's that like ignorance is bliss, you know, and a lot of the time people that don't always come from an industry, a lot of the time they come in with a novel approach and a new idea, and that's kind of what you want. Sometimes that experience or preconceived knowledge can kind of bog you down. So I think that's where sort of that when you hire someone and they've got those fresh eyes as well, that tends to be where that comes from as well. They're not laden with, you know, kind of all the prior knowledge or pattern that the business has got. So yeah.
Does anybody know who Warren Buffett's partner is? I'm struggling to remember his name.
I don't.
No.
I don't love money that much.
He's a brilliant guy. Obviously, him and Warren Buffett, they managed to, you know, make bazillions over the years. But I was reading something he said just the other day that, you know, he wouldn't hire somebody that overestimates their ability. And he was actually referring to Elon Musk at the time. He was like, that guy thinks too much of himself. I wouldn't hire him. Good as he is, right? But he had to admit, he said, sometimes these people that overestimate their own ability, most of the time they're not good at all, but sometimes they just knock it out of the park. Something to be said for irrational self-confidence. Do we have any other questions? I'm going to say that that's unknown. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to hand back to Jace to wrap up for the evening. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a great session, and it's been fantastic to hear your insights and your journeys.
Indeed, it has. Thanks, guys, so much for joining. I saw one comment come through that it's been a real great group therapy session. There's been a lot of candor, a lot of vulnerability, and I think those are absolutely imperative qualities to have in products. So thanks for modeling that as product leaders tonight. And also, I'll just probably end off with just one quick story from me. I was talking to someone in product in the last couple of weeks here and was just talking about goals, where they're going, and they said, well, maybe sometime in the next 5 years, maybe I could do a talk at Product Tank. And I want to say to everyone listening, everyone out there, maybe thinking about doing it sooner, maybe this year, maybe very soon. Step up, because everyone has got something amazing to share that you've learned on your journey so far. So back yourself, believe in yourself, get out there and build great product that people love.
Great.